Hey, I'm Quest for Nostalgia, and I hate really long intros. This video is going to be like a podcast with a couple friends talking about some video games. Let's get into it. Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about games that we really want remastered. So, right now we're living in a world where we get a lot of remakes and remasters, whether it's through Disney or whether it's in gaming and stuff like that. We've got amazing remakes and remasters for the Spyros, the Crash Bandicoots, Crash, all those were great. BioShock Remastered was awesome. One that I feel like slipped under the radar that people don't really understand was actually a remaster was the Halo Master Chief Collection. So, the Halo Master Chief Collection actually was a remaster for Halo 2, and it was probably the best remaster I've seen of those. The fur on those brutes is insane. If you watch those cutscenes for Halo 2, it is insane. I'd watch that whole movie if they did it like that. Like, it's just wild. But like, I feel like it wasn't pitched as a remaster. It was pitched as this collection of being able to play all of the Halos, playing them all online and stuff like that. And the fact that Halo 2 was remastered was just completely shoved under the rug. But yeah, so pretty much I've got Brandon, I've got Ben. They'll tell you what channels they've got going on, and right now we're going to go a little bit about ourselves, about what kind of gamers we are, so you guys can get a little bit of a picture of who we are as gamers and a little bit of what we like. So to start, I'm Quest for Nostalgia. My name is Dylan. I'm a retro gamer, so I run a Twitch channel as well as this here. I do a lot of stuff on an emulator PC that has GameCube, Game Boy Advance, all of those games. Those are what was most nostalgic to me. I started probably my own console as a Game Boy Pocket, playing like Ken Griffey Jr. baseball on that, and Donkey Kong, and had a Street Fighter port on there that was really cool. But I didn't play really cool classics. I didn't play like Final Fantasy and things like that. I did play things like Luigi's Mansion, which is a really known title, and Mario Kart Double Dash. Like, those ones are great. But like, I liked things like Attack of the Power Juju, Jimmy Neutron, Attack of the Twonkies, like these terrible baby games. PlayStation 2, I loved Sly Cooper and Collectathons and things like that. I never played Final Fantasy 7. I didn't play Chrono Trigger. I missed out on a lot of classics. But now, actually, I'm stepping into those games and trying these genres out. So on Twitch, you'll see a lot of that, of me going back and playing these games that I completely missed out on. Just beat Kingdom Hearts for the first time. So yeah, that's what you guys can expect from me. But now we'll go to Brandon, and we're going to hear a little bit about what kind of games Brandon's into, where he started, and what kind of gamer he is.
Thank you for that introduction, Dylan. My name is Brandon. I go by TwoinchPincher at the moment on Twitch. I started gaming way back, like SNES days. Like, some of these people out here don't even know what that is. SNES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. That was my entire life. I never had like the DS or anything like that, so I was just kind of stuck in that weird in between time. Never really was a console gamer, so I ended up gravitating towards PC gaming. I mainly just play MMORPGs and first-person shooters.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I never got into the MMORPGs because I was running dial-up PC well past when Ethernet and all that came out. Like, I was still using like AOL and People PC on this terrible dial-up connection. So like, I would have to try to go play RuneScape over my friend's house like way, way
No
later in
way.
life. So I missed out on all of those waves. But now we're gonna go over to Ben and see what he has to say about his kind of gaming past.
I came up in my uncle's games actually. My parents wouldn't buy me one at the time. But he had a Sega Genesis. That was my first taste of gaming was actually Street Fighter
Okay.
2. I just my brother and I gravitated towards it. We loved it. Eventually got into the NES. Really was into like the Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, DS, all that stuff was really what I was into. But my brother and I played a lot of Japanese stuff. We were with Square SquareSoft, and it was SquareSoft for
Yeah.
some of you just know the Square Enix. But yeah, we started there, so we played a lot of the classics. like the Legend of Dragoon and Brave Fencer Musashi, all the Final Fantasies. So we were really into the JRPGs early, and then gravitate towards the more common American type consoles, the PlayStations and the Xboxes. Got into first person shooters, but really I'm into all of it. But I would say my core really is the JRPGs, the like old school, turn based stuff. So that's how I grinded. That's where I started, and I just feel like I've kept a lot of that with me with my gaming career as I've gone on.
Nice, nice. Yeah, like I said, I just finished Kingdom Hearts for the first time. So finishing Kingdom Hearts in 2020 is really weird to like be this late to the game, and finishing it out, my first Square game was pretty interesting. And it's funny, I have an amazing collection of games. One day I'll do a game room tour here and show all of my old consoles and things like that. But you guys don't realize that Ben has an older brother that also is into gaming, so their collection is even better. And like really good classics. Like I said, like the things that I pull out, it's like I have Tarzan and these terrible Nintendo GameCube games, but I still own them, and they pull out like, a sealed Final Fantasy 7. I'm just teasing, but like, yeah, their collection is super legit, fight sticks for the PlayStation 1 and stuff like that. Super super cool collection. Yeah. But yeah, so let's get into our first round of, a game that we really want remastered, and I'll kick it off. And so I'll break it down. So the difference between remaster and remake is pretty much we're going to talk about games that we want you to change really almost nothing. The gameplay has to really stay the same. It has to be the same, mechanics and things like that. We don't want to change it up. That would fall into the remake category. We just want you to put some super nice graphics, give us that ray tracing and all of this super nice stuff. And just, use these new engines that are out and just give us that game again so that we can take the kind of people that we saw when we looked at these sprites back in the day, because like we said, we all started super early where you had these terrible polygon, or even worse, pixelated pixel art people that you had to craft this image in your head of what they looked like, and so you're trying to go ahead and either look at fan art or who came in the manual. Most of you gamers don't even realize that you used to have a manual that would have your character's backstory and things like that in there. But so that's what we're going to go into. We're going to go into games that we want just to give it a new fresh skin, but please don't change anything. And I'm going to start that off with a game that I finished last year, for finally finishing the whole thing through. I'd played it when I was younger and things like that, but that's going to be Fable. So Fable 1, it was probably, I would say, maybe the second or third RPG that I ever actually finished. And also, I'm huge into maxing out games, so the completionist stuff. So it used to be getting 1,000 gamer score on Xbox 360 and stuff like that. And then PlayStation now is platinums. And so I just started coming over to PlayStation, and I've been on platinum grinds like crazy because it's super addicting for me to do. But yeah, Fable, I missed it by one achievement, guys. There was a stupid achievement about this thing called Xbox Smart Glass, which does not exist anymore. And you had to connect it to the Fable game to use it as a mini map during the game. And I can't get that achievement. So I'm at like 980 out of 1,000 gamer score for Fable. It sucks so bad to do. But yeah, Fable. Brief, elevator pitch about that. It's a kid that goes into this like school that teaches them a little bit about like magic and swordsmanship and archery and all these things. And he can choose whether or not to be good or evil. And it was a really cool game to be able to go through and pick one side or the other. And also, it's one of those games where it doesn't make it too hard to try to be good and to be evil or whatever. When I played Red Dead, those games, you try to be good, but there's so many times where they force you to be evil in that ruins your honor. And you're like, son of a, like, I've been working so hard to be good. And like instantly it drops you down, to this level here because you had to go rob a bank. So Fable is really good about you being able to stick to whichever path you wanted to do. And so I played the good route until I had to do the achievements for being evil, and then you have to like do fun things like lure all these villagers like way into the woods and kill them in front of these giant doors, which also ticked like every box for collectathons for me. So like I really enjoy maxing things out. I enjoy Spyro getting all of the statues and things like that. So unlocking all of the doors and fables was like absolutely perfect for the type of gamer that I am. And then also on that, it was like I'm not good at MMORPGs or RPGs in general. So Ben and Brandon are going to be way better at doing side quests. I know Ben has platinumed the Horizon Zero Dawn, things like that. When there's too much choices like that, it's like, I don't know what to do because I'm so bent on checking off all boxes that it's really hard for me to do games like that there is no end. Horizon Zero Dawn's a little different, but like an MMORPG and stuff like that, there is no end. It's really hard for me. So being able to play Fable, there was unlimited inventory, which is huge. Not being over encumbered and being able to just grab every fork, bowl, whatever you wanted to grab and not being weighed down is perfect because I'll go into a room and I'm going to open every cabinet. I will open every drawer and I'm going to grab every item I can. Skyrim, the first time I ever played that, I did not make it out of actually, this was Oblivion. The first time I was like coming out of that little like sewer thing, I was crawling and had no idea what the hell was going on because I had grabbed every bread, bowl, spoon, like on every rack that there is there. And I was just like, dude, I hate this. Trying to figure out if I want these leather gauntlets or whatever to drop. And I'm like, oh, but that's so much better money right there. Just, they never do well. So Fable, that really helped me not being over encumbered. Also, there's not a million side quests. So I can't live in that world. I don't want to live in these RPGs where it feels like I have to get a job, get a wife, maintain a home. In that you can have a wife and she gives you presents and things like that, but you literally have to give her like a box of chocolate and roses every once in a while. Nothing else, you don't have to decorate your house, nothing like that. So I would love for this to get a like super nice remake, like, or remaster, just a really good skin. I mean, you just see the Final Fantasy VII graphics and things like that. You see what they can do in just like the CGI cutscenes and things like that of there. I think that Fable would do really well with that, coming back with that. I mean, I know that with the Xbox Series S and Series X, they are getting a new Fable finally, which is really cool. But yeah, I want the original because I'm afraid that when they do this new one, they're going to try to make it the Witcher 3 Fable. They're going to try to make it so just diluted and just throwing crap in there just to make it seem like this is a 160-hour game. It's like, that's not what I want. I want a really good storyline. I want good choices, but I don't want to feel like I have to get a job in this game. I don't want to feel like I can't max it out. So that's my pick. I'm going with Fable.
I was gonna say in Fable, like what was something the genre that makes Fable worth making?
It's good for people like me who are now venturing out into genres I've never played, so I'm currently looking for those games that will start my journey into those genres. So like I want to play things like Mass Effect 2. I want to play, all of these RPGs that people swear by, but that I could never get into because I had played platformers like Crash and Spyro my entire life and never had to actually invest into an RPG style game. I think that's where we need games like Fable that are that stepping stone. Same thing with Kingdom Hearts. People rag on it and say it's not a JRPG because it doesn't tick all of the boxes of a JRPG. But for me, I'm struggling to try to get into JRPGs. I tried Chrono Trigger and it burnt me out. I tried Ni no Kuni. I got burnt out by the stopping and doing the battle system. But something like Kingdom Hearts, which gives me JRPG aspects with, a real time fighting mechanic and things like that was such a good stepping stone that has now sparked my interest to dive deeper into it. And I think that's what Fable will do for things like Dragon Age and Skyrim and The Witcher. It's a perfect stepping stone for those people that are in that gray area that, like, man, I really want to see what these genres are like, but I just can't hop into there and are going to get overwhelmed by a 150-hour Assassin's Creed game, whatever. Cool. So then, do you want to kick off the next one then?
My pick was Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and I think that's a little. I guess it's kind of 2003, so it's not really recent, but in gaming it kind of is. But yeah, you play as this boy named Marsh. You get swept away to this magical land as you do in most Final Fantasy games. Um, but because it's a tactical RPG, I just feel like it took so many unique elements from the Square Enix games, like the Dragon Quest games, and from the Final Fantasy games. They took so many good aspects from both. Plus a tactical, they'd already come up with one tactic game, but this was like a refinement of that game. I feel like they felt free enough to add in new elements and to do exciting things. And at that time, it really got me into it. I was coming off of, like I already said, a bunch of RPGs. So when I got my hands on that, it almost, you remember how you were kind of saying you weren't into the whole turn-based thing?
Yeah.
It gave turn-based a purpose. Like you were turn-based because you're in two different factions and because each faction is moving, based on their speed. So some people move a little bit faster, some people move a little bit slower. So there's just a lot of good things in that game that, you know, kind of bridged the gap for me. It was the perfect version of of a JRPG for me. And as someone who played a lot of them, it just seemed like the best format. Like typically when you're doing turn-based combat and you go I go, it just doesn't really make sense. But when you can, in Tactics Advance, you can see when everyone's going to attack. You can either hasten your people to get them to attack first, or slow down the other team. So I mean, it just checked every box for an RPG. It just made it make more sense. Um, there was this really unique system called laws, and in that game, you have to abide by the law, or else when your characters die, they get erased from your party. So I mean,
Dang.
having a little bit of having a little bit of that you know that fight, like you can't die aspect to a game. I also think adds gravity, adds weight to it. When you're lawless, you end up in a position where you can die, and if you abide by the law, you end up with advantages. And I mean, I just thought that entire concept in a game was just different to me, and it was unique, and I really liked it. And I just think it's something that you know if you brought it forward in time, you gave it an XCOM type skin, it would be a really really clean transition. Um, it's just something that like you said, all the ray tracing, all that kind of stuff. It would make it look really nice, and I think that would just make it more accessible because it really isn't that different from XCOM. All things considered, because it is a tactical game. I just think that it totally bridges the generational gap. Like a tactical game is easy for anyone to get into. Uh, Final Fantasy is really accessible. Everyone kind of knows a little bit about Final Fantasy if you play games, and just put a new coat of paint on that bad boy, and the game itself is good to go.
Yeah. Do you think it would do well as a like a mobile game, like bringing it to phones? Do you think that's going to be where it could live out really well as opposed to being on a console? Because like that's a thing with the Game Boy games and stuff like that. We played them when we were at camp. We played them, all these different places. And a big part of it was playing with your friends and doing it on the go. So like it was really nice to be able to sit down and do a full long battle. You were able to grind because you were in a car trip to Florida or whatever you were doing. So do you think that it should be a mobile game, or do you think you'd rather see it on console?
Rather see it on console because I just think that you could do so much graphically that would make it amazing. But it could easily be a mobile game too. I think if it was mobile, you just had to port it. You wouldn't have to do
Okay.
very much aesthetic to it. So I mean, if we're really talking about doing a remake and like getting
Mm-hmm.
new graphics and that type of stuff, I would definitely say that it needs the console treatment. But if you just want to do a port, I mean, I would take a port on any device I have right now. I would take it on my TI-84. So yeah, it's a good game. So I just think you move that forward and you give it a skin that's comparable to other games currently, and you have yourself an easy win.
Let's go over to Brandon's and see what option he has to he wants to be remade.
So I kind of feel like that was a pretty good segue into like my genre that I chose. It was basically an RPG. There was no online. It was just a straight simple story, classic puzzle game. Golden Sun. Okay. Now you're thinking, why Golden Sun? There's so many other games out there, but it's one of those games that it just takes you back. Like doing all these puzzle quests, looking online, trying to figure out how to do this, how to do that. You don't get those anymore. You really don't. It's like Easter eggs here and there, but that game was amazing. Unfortunately, it got overshadowed by Dragon Quest, which is very similar to Golden Sun. Mechanics are a little different, but Golden Sun is basically like this storyline where you're trying to save the world, and you have these you can call them Pokemon. They're basically Pokemon, and it's just a really nice, classic, easy story puzzle game.
Nice. Yeah. So I again was capturing footage for this when he had first mentioned that he was going to do Golden Sun, and again, I did not play this during the Game Boy.
Amazing games.
Game Boy days, we got what our parents gave us, what they thought was cool. A lot of the time, yeah, you could ask for games, but often it was like, you got a few of whatever they got you. Like my first Game Boy Advanced, the white one, I think I got a version of Cool Borders, or it might have been 1080 snowboarding, some one of those two franchise. It came with that, a terrible Harry Potter game cartridge or whatever. So like I had these. I never had Golden Sun, I never had Final Fantasy Tactics, but I played the beginning of Golden Sun to capture some footage, and I was just sitting there like, man, I played Pokemon instead of this. Like this is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the sprite work, like how we had just mentioned in Ben's, that I don't know how kids would do with a sprite based game, like I don't know, because they didn't have that nostalgic feeling for it, if they would just be like, this is hideous, what am I doing, but for me, looking at the sprite work on Golden Sun, I was like, geez, like this is crazy good, and I'm over here, like I said, playing Pokemon, playing Gold and Silver and stuff like that. It was just like, man, like I really missed out. And it's like I completely understand how that has a real story. I can understand like when people do videos about, top games for Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, all these things and stuff like that. And some of them are like, I don't really like Pokemon. And I'm like, what? Pokemon is the best game ever. That's because I didn't play Golden Sun. I didn't play, these amazing, games on there. And it's like, yeah, jealous of that. But art style wise, like how like Dragon Quest looks like, Dragon Ball Z, whatever. And I've never seen what the Golden Sun characters are supposed to look like, and that's what I talked about in the very beginning of the episode. Was we played these games on the PlayStation 1, on the Game Boy Advance, where we had to use our imagination almost to figure out, to paint in the pictures of what these characters actually looked like. If you look at Cloud from Final Fantasy VII walking around a mini map, he's just a bunch of triangles and diamonds walking around, looking insane. Even when you get to the battle, he gets a slight bump in, whatever. But then you see something like the Final Fantasy VII remake where it's just gorgeous. It makes no sense. It's like everything you could have ever imagined in your head about what these characters actually looked like. What style of game, like, would the art style look like for Golden Sun?
It would, now that you mention it, definitely look like Kingdom Hearts,
Okay.
because as I'm thinking about it, like most of the tactic style gameplay that it has is very similar to Kingdom Hearts.
What games have you had that you love so much that actually have gotten the remaster already? Is there any that come to mind?
So I actually only picked up Dragon Quest on the PS2, and it was Dragon Quest 7. And I remember it being the best game ever. Fast forward like 13 years or something, Dragon Quest comes out again on PC. I pick it up, obviously getting that nostalgic feeling, and my god, it was the same game, it just looked so much better.
Bro. I was a huge Spyro kid. All three of them loved it. Got them, the day they dropped. I was a huge Crash Bandicoot kid. So got the trilogy as soon as it dropped. Crash Team Racing was my heart and soul. Um, played to death. That's how I broke my first analog stick was Crash Team Racing. Um, so yeah, those three really like hit home for me. But one game, and it actually got leaked recently. They're remaking it. It's called Power Stone, and it was for the Dreamcast initially. Power Stone and Power Stone Two.
Yeah.
And I'm not out of all the genres. I am not a big fighter kind of person. I'm not big into fighters, but that fighter was one of my favorite games I've ever played. It was slightly adventure-y,
I would say, is that the
but
one
a
where like
lot
the
of
the
like, I mean,
maps, like you could go around the map and grab items off the ground and stuff like that when you were fighting?
yes.
I think
And
I've seen
like
that.
the three power stones, you get a power up, you get a special move. I mean, it was the ultimate like jump in, fight against your friends and jump out. Like it was more of an arcade experience, but it was on a console. It was just it was great, and it needed a remake. And the leak happened. It's coming, and I'm
Nice,
excited for that one.
nice. Yeah, I mean, I was same there with you with the Spyro. I mean, the Spyro trilogy. Whew, that one was amazing. Spyro and Crash Bandicoot were on the PlayStation, and they were made of cones and triangles and diamonds, so they were rough, and then got these amazing remasters as well. So yeah, I definitely fall in that same boot. And I had mentioned earlier the Halo 2 remaster is just wild. Halo 2 is actually what got me onto Xbox and started that path of playing Xbox first person shooters almost solely, which I think is what really ruined my taste in games, was that I played so many shooters from, I don't know, 13 up, as opposed to expanding my, taste. But yeah, that Master Chief Collection, I didn't even realize it was a Halo 2 remaster until I got it and opened it and like saw like some behind the scenes thing of the game testers playing it. And I was like, "Wait, what's that?" And they're like, "Oh, that's Halo 2. That's in this." And I'm like, "What?" Open it up, and like I said, first cutscenes, you see like the hair on these brutes and stuff, and you're just like, wow, okay, this is the remaster that I needed, because that Halo 2, I remember taking, my giant 27-inch boob tube and carrying that to my friend's house and setting that up so that way we could system link and play against each other without screen peeking and stuff like that. And so that game has so much nostalgia for me, and for it to get that gorgeous look to it, and then to be able to play that online again was a sick remaster. So yeah, so that's it for the remasters. I'm sure you're going to see a lot more of us. We've got a lot of topics we want to talk about there. You can follow me on Twitch as well, Quest for Nostalgia. Same thing on Instagram. Pretty much all the platforms is just Quest for Nostalgia there. And variety streamer, I do everything from VR. You can see it over here as well. I love VR, but I also will be doing tons of retro games and things like that. And you'll see me expanding my genre, expanding my taste of games, going into JRPGs, RPGs, real time strategies. Truly variety streamer to the max. And then I'll let you hear from Brandon about what channel he's got going over there.
So you guys can find me on Twitch at 2InchPincher. I do mostly FPS streams, but I'll occasionally do MMORPG, mostly stream Valorant, and a little bit of Fortnite. But other than that, you can find all my socials there.
Cool. And Ben, tell me a little bit about your stuff going on.
I'm Ben. My socials, you can find me at Beamer Ben. That's two E's in Beamer underscore in between Beamer and Ben. Um, I'm on, everything: Instagram, Twitch, uh, YouTube, everywhere. Just check me out. I do a lot of crafts. I'm trying to get more into that. Trying to work it up, and I'm also into pretty much any kind of game. I haven't really got into the game streaming quite yet, but that's next up on my docket. And especially with this page starting, I think I'm going to try and give that more of an opportunity.
If you guys don't know, Ben also created my Twitch emote there, that the GameCube with the crying face on there. Super artistic guy, and yeah, he's also got me addicted to watching Game Boy restorations and stuff like that. So expect some cool stuff coming out of his channel as well. Cool. I think that's it for it. And thanks for watching, guys. Hey, if you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around and watching the video. I really enjoyed making it. I enjoyed hanging out with my friends and talking about video games. I can do that for hours easily. If you guys have any ideas about, what topics you want us to cover, let us know. If you want to be in a future video, just reach out. If you have recording capabilities, I'd love to have more people in here as well. Check out their socials, things like that. And here's my socials, Instagram, and then you also have my Twitch as well. So follow me on those and give me a little bit of support. It took a lot of time to get the audio synced up for 3 different cameras and different things like that, getting that footage there. So I really appreciate you guys making it this far, and hopefully you guys will get to see more.